I think we are live. This is my first time doing this, so looks like it's working. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Looks like, oh my god, there's a lot of you here. Jesus, 100 people. I can't do this. This is my first live stream attempt, at least in this way. I did one with my girlfriend last summer on the phone, just for fun. So yeah, we have like soon 200 people here. I'll be honest, I'm nervous. If I mess up, this is live, so well, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to mess up because I don't really have a plan. The mic is broken. What does it sound like? Mic isn't broken. There are so many people in the chat that I'm having difficulties keeping up. Looks like most of you can hear me. Good. All right, well, welcome to this first ever real live stream. My heart is beating because I'm very nervous. But I thought I would just talk about my own show you guys what I'm working on and I guess maybe answer some questions. Yes, I am Swedish. Well, I am Russian, but I speak Swedish. It's my mother language, so hence the Swedish accent. All right. This is what I've been working on so far, what you see here on the screen. I thought I'd analyze it and give my take on the situation. The chat is very distracting. Lots of people here. I wish I could read every comment, but I guess you'll let me know if there's anything very important. So this is not up to date because, well, as you can see, the time of it is next midnight. But this is the changes I've observed. I guess I'll address one main question you've been having here on my videos is how accurate is this? The truth is, it depends. Like, first of all, this is a very simple map, and there are pros and cons to keeping it simple. Obviously, it doesn't come close to showing the whole picture and the real situation on the ground. So people have been criticizing me for showing too much red, and I totally get that actually. So I thought I'd explain that. Basically, red here doesn't mean that Russians have been on every square inch or every pixel of the map. Red on my maps basically means, well, dark red means de facto annexed by the country. So Crimea is de facto annexed, and de facto means in reality. De jure means on paper. So Crimea is de facto part of Russia. That's why it's dark red. And, well, obviously Belarus controls itself. The lighter shade of red, the one in the middle, that's occupied territories. And the lightest shade, that's gains this day or last 12 hours. Now, lots of people have been commenting this is not accurate. It's far too red. You say Russians only control the main roads and not the stuff in between. From what I can understand, that's largely true. But this video or this map actually it's not really supposed to depict that aspect of reality. I don't expect that Russians have gone through every single field, every square meter, or every pixel that is red. Basically what I'm doing, I'll show you here. I'll demonstrate. Say there are two roads on the map here. One goes like that, and one goes like that. And the Russians take advance along both roads. Obviously, they don't control the fields in between most of the cases. But basically, what I do then is I'll assume that, well, on my maps, the way I show it is basically, yeah, Russians control this part in between too. It's a simplification, and it doesn't show the whole picture. I'm aware of it. But there's also benefits to simplifying. Ukrainians live in these red areas. They don't like Russia. They rule themselves pretty much. But what red here means is basically that Russians control the area more than the Ukrainians, or at least more than the Ukrainian military. Hopefully, I've made myself clear on that. So that's pretty much the situation. Let's analyze the map from south to north. I'll take a moment to read comments also. I think there's lots of Russian bots here. Lots of Ukraine and lots of Russia. Doesn't really make a difference, guys. The war will keep going regardless. I can't make heads of... Jesus, 1,100 people? This is too much. Welcome. I guess I should restate what the purpose of this live stream is. Basically, I'm just talking. What I'll do now is just analyze the map. First of all, here in Mykolaiv Oblast, which is basically this. No, that's too much. Stop. Yeah. I showed a huge breakthrough basically here. I don't know if this is correct. This is from Russian sources, and it might be fake news, and it might be over-exaggerated. I'm starting to suspect it might be because, well, usually Russian sources are way earlier showing map changes than Western ones. And usually the Westerns keep up like maybe a day later they update. But this progress has not been... It's only really been shown on like one major source, I think. And apparently breakthrough is not the right term to describe this. The way I understand it is that it's just reconnaissance vanguard units advancing ahead without resistance, I should point out. But I don't think we should make too much of it, and it might even be false. So that's a main thing with my videos. I'm making these updates as we get information, and often I don't have time to, like, no one is able to verify it. Maybe one source says something like they have gone here, and like 10 other have not yet updated that. So often I'll have to make the decision, like, is this plausible? Obviously, I want to be as accurate as possible and as up to date as possible. So if something comes in like an hour before I'm supposed to upload, maybe I'll add it, maybe not. It depends on what other sources say and how plausible I think it is. About this advance into Mykolaiv. But to me, if you look at a map, let's go to Google Maps here, it kind of makes sense that they would go this far north, because apparently they have not been able to take Mykolaiv. And as you can see, there's this huge river delta, not delta, what is it called? Like mouth of the river here by Mykolaiv. Russians can't really pass Mykolaiv, west of Mykolaiv, unless they have the city, and they have not got the city yet. What I think they're doing is just going around here until they find a bridge, which might be not Nova Odessa. Well, no. Looks like the next crossing is here in Voznesensk. And that's what I've heard that they're aiming for. I saw this on a Russian source, and I'm pretty sure he's exaggerating because he's very biased. But also, everything he's been telling me turns out to have been largely true, like according to Western sources, maybe 2 days later. So he's way ahead, and he's biased, and he's probably like a puppet of Moscow, and is over exaggerating. So basically, what I did is I showed. Well, he said the reconnaissance west. They went north, just east of Mykolaiv, and then they went west here. Obviously, to get to Odessa and try to encircle it. I don't believe they've reached that far, but I have no idea. No Western sources indicate they've even gone past Mykolaiv. Some Russian sources say they're quite a bit north and west. I can't find much proof of it, and I know Russian sources are biased. I should also point out Western sources are very biased too. They, from what I can tell, they basically only report on news that are bad for Russia, and when something good happens to Russia, they're kind of quiet. And Russia, the Russian media is way worse in the opposite direction. So that's the situation. Basically, well, I showed that they got guess, like almost everything is. You guys are complaining that, well, some of you, I've read the comments, and some are saying that this is totally fake. I make this up, and to a certain extent, yes, I am making it up because I'm looking at lots of different sources, and they all say different things, and almost all of them, they lots of sources have information that is exclusive to that source. Some source will say, oh, some sources have said that Russians are up here. So what I do then is I look at the other sources and I say, well, is this Russian propaganda? Is this bullshit? Do other sources say the same thing? And usually what I have to do is if like one Russian source says, yeah, they reached this far, or they're pushing that direction, maybe I'll show like the Russians advancing like that, like towards that area, but not completely there. So oftentimes it's guesses. I'm trying to take all sources into account and make the best guess I have. Now, just because one source says this is the case, I won't add it. It takes more than that. So I guess that's it for the Mykolaiv front. Lots of partisan activity here in Erenhodar. Is that the name of the city or the town? Enerodar. Lots of partisan activity here last 12 days. They are setting up roadblocks along the main roads and are resisting the Russian advance. I fear lots of people will die here. But yeah, partisan activity there, as you can see here. That's what green means. Some of you who don't know what partisan means, basically, when people take up arms on their own, independently of any government or organization, to resist what often is a foreign invader, such as in this case. That's partisans. This is also a tricky area. I'm not very sure about this. Various sources claim they marched this far north. Then later on, I heard the Ukrainians have been pushing back. Some sources indicate to here, others just here, some not at all. So I'm not sure. I might be over exaggerating here too. Looks like the Russians, I think it was maybe yesterday, connected the Crimea and Donbas fronts here. Mariupol is under siege and it's a bitch of a fortress. So don't expect Mariupol to fall soon. That's my take on it. Odessa too. Odessa is bloody impossible to penetrate. The Romanians learned that in World War II. It took a long time for them to take Odessa. They actually never really took Odessa. The Russians evacuated. And by that time, the Germans had advanced, I think, well, at least to Donbass, I believe. Here in the Donbass front, lots of fighting. I've heard that the main Ukrainian elite units are in Donbass, and I've also heard, keep in mind, from Russian sources that they have been trapped. For some reason, well, the Russians are trying to advance this way. Sorry for the ugly arrows. I'm improvising here. The Russians are trying to cut off the elite units in Donbass, and what I've heard from Russian sources is that it's basically too late for the Ukrainians to get out for some reason. Perhaps they're very well entrenched, from what I understand, roughly here in a city called, basically here. So the Ukrainians are basically making a long-term stand here, which, if this is true, it's really bad for Ukraine. Most of the experienced soldiers were already here when it began, and apparently, from Russian sources, again, they're trapped. Fighting here, as usual. This last 12 days, lots of action on the Kharkov fronts, basically fighting here, and the Russians have been advancing here. Some sorry, my mouse wheel is broken, so can't really use it. Lots of partisan activities in general in this location. Partisan activity, I should also, basically, whenever I hear news about civilians fighting the Russians on their own, that's when I show partisan activity. And this is far from accurate because, well, the war is going on as we speak. I'm only using the latest information available, and much of the information is simply not available to the people, I think. So this Ukrainian push right here seems to be, I don't think it's a push. I think the Russians abandoned that area. That's what I heard in the news. I don't know much about it except for abandoned vehicles. And here, this is just, I have no context for this part here. Oh, sorry. All I saw is a map showing that, and yeah, my map did not agree with that, so I thought, well, maybe I'll just change it. And then in the Kiev fronts, this might be a little too late, actually. These events might have happened yesterday. I'm not sure. So as you guys can hear, like, I don't have like the Russian generals' latest maps. I do what I can with the information I have. That's all anyone can do because Western media doesn't know what's going on. I don't think Russian media knows what's going on. Neither do I. Comment time? I can see lots of comments being blocked by YouTube because maybe it's just Russian bots. I'm not sure. The chat is going so fast that I can't keep up. Another thing I want to say is regarding this critique about the map not being accurate, it depends on what you mean. Earlier in the stream, I told you what my definition of red and blue is. I'll repeat that, but I should point out that I've seen different maps showing different things. If you have seen Andrei Vasilenko's channel, he posted a map showing basically just very thin lines of red where Russians had advanced. Basically, I'll like this and maybe this and something like this. That's a map he showed where basically only the roads were shown as red. To a certain extent, that's true. I've heard and I believe that the Russians are sticking mainly to the roads. The thing about that is, well, this is not new in wars. Even in World War II, like Germans stuck mainly to the roads. You don't really go through fields and forests unless you have to. So there's a point in that Russians only control the roads, but also what I'm doing is, look, if the Russians are controlling these two roads, then the Ukrainian military is probably not controlling like the fields, not de facto. So what I do then is I just show the territories in between as being controlled by Russia. I think that's fair, but I agree it's not optimal. It doesn't show the whole picture. This is never meant to show the whole picture. It's impossible to show the whole picture on a simple map. So basically, my own definition for what is red and what is blue is basically: do the Russians have more influence here, or do the Ukrainians have more influence here? I don't think in modern wars that there are the same types of front lines that there were in World War One and Two. We haven't really had a big scale war in the world for like a long time. Maybe it was Vietnam last, maybe Afghanistan, Iraq, I guess. But this is something new. We haven't really seen anything like this since World War II. And it's been a long time and lots of technological advancements since that time. We don't know what to expect. Lots of Western sources say that Russia is doing really poorly. They're abandoning equipment. I feel like that's a sort of no-brainer. This is a war. It's tough fighting. And I'm sure the Ukrainians are also abandoning equipment. I mean, people do that in war. And they say Russians are looting. I mean, yes, obviously. And they lack equipment and food. That's war, in my opinion. And I'm sure the Ukrainians do the same. What did they expect? That's my question. I'm not sure. The truth is, we don't really know what to expect from this type of war. It's new to us. Some people said that Ukraine would fall in like 2 days. In my opinion, Ukraine have better odds against Russia right now than Poland did against Germany in World War II. And it took, I think it was more than a month for Germany to conquer Poland with the help of the Soviet Union. So I think it's silly that we expect Ukraine to fall in a few days. Ukraine is a big country, a very big country, the second largest in Europe. It's not going to fall like that. I think that's a misconception we had about modern wars, that now foreign militaries could just wreck a country like that in hours. In Sweden, they said Russia would conquer Sweden in 11 hours. I think what the war in Ukraine has taught us is that's not true. It can't be. Like, it's very rare that an entire country just collapses like that. Also, we certainly underestimated the fighting spirit of the Ukrainians. They are fighting like mad, and I don't see the Russians winning anytime soon. It's very difficult to say what will happen. I will make a video where I show 3 types of scenarios, what might happen. And like my usual videos, I'll pretty much do it like a storytelling type of video, I think. Keeping to the facts and reality, that's not my strong point, actually. I make my videos like sort of more like fairy tales than like I like to keep a narrative. I like to keep a story. So that's probably what you can expect, something like that. Too early to say anything about it. I only just started it, working on the video like a few hours ago, and tonight I'll upload day 7, and tomorrow I'll upload a compilation of what we've seen, like from day 1 to day 7, how the front lines have worked the last 7 days. Lots of people have been asking for that, so yes, you will get it. And I was always going to make it. I just waited 7 hours. It would not make sense for me to make day 1 and 2 and then upload day 1, 2 combined, and then day 3 1, 2, 3 combined. That's just spamming, and I'm already doing enough of that right now as it is. So I'll wait until tomorrow, and then I'll post the entire week together. The chat makes it look like it's only Russian bots and people who hate Russia. When are you getting rid of those pro-Russian bots? I have no idea how to do that. I see lots of messages being blocked already. Apparently not enough. So I think if I do this again, I might have to disable chat, which is sad because I wanted to hear your opinions, but I'll try to. I just missed a comment that was aimed at me. Sorry. I'll try to keep up. I'll read the comments for a while and see if slow mode, someone says. Is that possible? I think that's in the. I think I'm not able to change edit. Oh, wait here. Message delay. This is probably something. Okay, so how about you can only send one message every 30 seconds? Shall we see if that works? That seems to have worked slightly. I can't read the comments. It's moving too fast. Sorry. Maybe 60 seconds then. Let's see here. Might be other settings I need to. Once again, this is my first stream. Maybe only subscribers. I gotta limit it here. I really have to. Okay. Let's wait a while and see if that worked. I think there's gonna be conflict flaring up all over Ukraine once Russia has reached land dominance in like a month. That's a comment. I actually think Western Ukraine is going to stay relatively stable. Even if Russia wins the war against Ukraine, I don't see Western Ukraine falling to Russia. They are too Western. They are too they're too Western. What I think will happen if Russia conquers Kiev and Kiev makes peace, I feel like basically this part of Ukraine is going to break off. Call it like Free Ukraine or West Ukraine. And what I wish they would call it, because I love history, just call it the Republic of Galicia. Because there was this kingdom here in Western Belarus and Western Ukraine a long time ago called the Kingdom of Galicia-Volhynia. And it was a cool country. And they should, this is a great opportunity to, like, if Ukraine falls, revive that nation, please. I mean, if most of Ukraine, central and eastern Ukraine, falls to Russia, I believe Western Ukraine is going to break off. I don't see them falling into the sphere of Russian influence. And then just please make this a real country again. All right. I seem to have solved the comment problem. I will now read some. Can you make a tutorial on how to make animated maps? I'm not good at making animated maps. I mean, my style is very simple. I'm not a technical guy. I use Paint. Well, mostly Paint actually. And if you can teach yourself how to use that, I'm not going to help. You guys want sources? I wrote in a short Q&A in my community what my sources are. Basically, it's well, I can show you actually some of them. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Wikipedia, obviously. This guy is very biased. He's I think he's Russian, and my Russian friends have told me don't listen to him, not at all. I'll admit I do listen to him. He's been right so far, and the Western maps show what he shows, but a few days later. So I think he's over-exaggerating, but he's drawing on truth. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for Moscow's puppets to say something's going on in the war that is not going on, because obviously that will backfire when truth gets out. You don't want to give your own people false hope, because when that false hope turns out to be false, morale goes down. So that's a biased Russian source that I am careful with listening to, but I do listen to him. Wikipedia is Western, I believe. We take a look at the maps here. So lots of people say this, your maps are totally wrong. Look at this map. This is how it's really like. And to that I say, I've been following this map since day one. And what I can tell you is that this map is very slow on updating. You see these two pushes here, that was like 2-3 days ago. And what I can say in defense of this map is I don't think they show anything that is not, like, I don't think they show anything red that is not controlled by Russia. I do, however, think they show lots of people being controlled by Ukraine that is not being controlled by Ukraine. But again, it's a matter of definition, how you choose to do it. Then we have this one here. I think it's partly kind of slow, I guess, because the way I understand it, lots of these cities here are controlled or contested by Russia, and they just show it as blue. I'm not sure what to make of it, but I find this map pretty useful lots of the time. I think they're wrong about the blue cities here. But this map seems to be pretty conservative with showing Russian gains. But usually when they show something being controlled by Russia, I can trust that it is controlled by Russia. But if they show something being controlled by Ukraine, I'm not as sure. Then we have this map. Lots of people Ogda, your maps are totally wrong. Look at this map. This is way more accurate. And this is my main source, to be honest. It's good because it you where stuff is happening and when and how and like according to multiple news sources. I think this is my most reliable source and it's my main source. But again, it doesn't show everything. Lots of times, major things are happening that are good for Russia, and they just don't report on it. So some sources, I believe, but what they do report is basically foolproof. It's accurate. But they have been wrong, and so have I, because I've listened to this. But I'd say this is the best source. Live UA map. Look at that one. But it doesn't show the whole picture. None of the maps do, actually. So yeah, this is their main site, but it's down all the time. So what I'm doing is like this is some sort of copy of that. Then I look at the Twitter. And I'll be honest, this is pretty funny. I'm using as my source, and I'm starting to fear that he is using me as a source because I made this bend on the map before, and I pretty much guessed that this is what the way they were. I had an inkling of the direction they were going in, but and now he's making the same pretty much push that I showed on. So problem if I'm using him as a source and he uses me as a source, and that's not good. We might just basically have a circle jerk here, him and me. Okay, so those are not all of the sources, but I look at multiple sources and make the best guess I can. Now back to the comments. You're able to promote people to moderators and then they can ban the bots. Yes, but I don't know who to do. I guess I'll have some volunteers. If I miss something, then you'll have to wait a minute and then write again. I'll try to answer now. Do you think? Sorry, I missed that one. Jesus, I gotta solve this somehow. Not good. Should I increase like 2 minutes? Would that just make it worse for you? Super chats. Not sure what that is. Well, no. The truth is, I don't really. Comments. So I'll limit some comments, I guess. The ones that YouTube recommend I limit. And then I'll have to increase the delay on how much you can write. I guess 2 minutes. Sorry about this. Really sorry, but I gotta be able to read the chat. I mean, and then everyone who is subscribed can comment. I gotta limit it. I'm very sorry. All right, let's see if that worked then. I'll start reading comments now. Go ahead. You saw Lukashenko map? Yes, I did see it. I think it's so like Lukashenko to fail in that way. I mean, middle of a war and he just shows the entire map. What is that? Do you think that because of the war in Ukraine, Sweden and Finland might join NATO? Yes, I do believe they will. What do you think? Sorry. Yes, they do seem to be moving along the main roads. I know that. I don't think Putin does not care about the resistance in Ukraine. I think this has turned out to be his main obstacle in this war. Do you think Ukraine will join EU. I heard that pretty much last night the EU voted in favor of accepting Ukraine, but I don't think it will change anything in reality. Maybe just politically, like on paper, but the war will not end because of that. No way. By the way, if you are directing a question or a comment to me, then type at Vologda Mapping and I'll see it. Do you want Ukraine to be in the EU? I'll be honest, I don't want to get political, but I'm not really in favor of the EU. I don't care if Ukraine joins it. I don't mind Sweden being part of it. I just don't think it's an optimal solution. All big YouTubers use chats because the limiter is terrible. Use super chats. Okay, so I gotta figure out what super chat is and how it works. In Sweden, it says top chat. I guess I'll try that. Can I use your map for a war map me and my roommate are making in our own living room? Well, yeah, sure, go ahead. If you're posting my maps online for the public to see, all I ask is that you credit me. Who's winning? Difficult question. Who's winning? I honestly don't know. I don't know who's winning. You have to scroll down on chats and it pauses for you. Scroll down. Yeah, okay, okay. Okay, so once again, this is my first live stream, so that's why I don't really know what to do here. Okay, we have some questions. Wait, missed it. You think World War III could start? Yes, it could start, but I don't think it will. If Donbass gets encircled, don't you think the Russians can invade the entirely east of the Dnieper really quickly? Not really quickly, but they can take it. If they encircle Donbass, then things get easier for the Russians. Troops coming from Moldova, according to your map, is that correct? From Moldova, I think you might have misunderstood. My map does not show troops coming from Moldova. Would you support Sweden joining NATO? No. I think Sweden is just going to become a battleground. I think Sweden should stay neutral. How old am I? 23, I think. Do you recognize Transnistria as a nation? I think it's de facto a nation. I don't care for it. I think it might be the worst country in Europe, just because how poor it is. Well, I recognize it. I think it's independent in reality, but I wouldn't say I support it. Glad to see you went from 200 viewers to 2K real quick. Yeah, there's a lot of you. Thank you for that. Sorry to ask, but do you think they will invade Ukraine from Transnistria? No. Transnistria it's a Russian-backed state, but they're too weak to risk for them to join the war. They'll stay out of it. Is the thing in Moldova Transnistria? Yes. It's this. I'll bring my map up again. Let's make it purple. This is Transnistria, and it's legally a part of Moldova, but in reality, it's independent and Russian-backed, and it's a. I'll leave it at that. It's not a good country. If the Treaty of Lisbon strengthens the solidarity between EU countries in dealing external threats by introducing a mutual defense clause, EU countries have to. Okay. Georgia will apply for EU membership tomorrow. Georgian diplomats and media report it. What do you think will happen? Oh, I haven't heard about that. I doubt Georgia will join the EU. I doubt the EU will accept them. Depends on how the war is going. I mean, we don't know. How long will Ukraine last? I think it looks like right now that if it keeps going the way it's going, Ukraine east of or Ukraine east of the Dnieper, which is the river flowing through the country, it might fall to the Russians, all of it, in the long term. That will take about, I'll give it like several months for all of it to be under Russian control. If they are willing to keep fighting and losing men for it, it will be very expensive for. Maybe parts around the Dnieper will fall to the Russians too. At the very most, well, what's blue here could fall to the Russians, possibly in the future if the Russians keep on fighting, which it looks like they might not. What's green here is what I do not believe can fall to the Russians. All you gotta do is, if you're wondering what it's like to invade a country, search the country and then topography. And let's take a look here at Ukraine. What does the country look like? Where can armies defend? Where are the mountains in Ukraine? Western. Also, the European Union and NATO, I don't think they'll tolerate Russians moving all the way to the border here. I think Western Ukraine, if Ukraine falls to Russia, then Western Ukraine will break off. That's what I believe. That being said, I don't think all of Ukraine, central Ukraine, will fall to Russians. But that's worst case scenario for Ukraine. Whatever happens, I do believe part of Ukraine will still be independent. And a very interesting scenario in that case would be if they voted to join the EU and perhaps even Poland. That's not impossible. Wouldn't it be awesome to see Poland annex these lands like it was in the olden days? Let's take a look at what that might look like. This is why I love maps. I love experimenting with what maps might look like in the future. Obviously, it'll be more complicated than that, but take a look at that. What do you think? Could that happen? Do you think that NATO will join the war in the long term? Here's how I see that happening. One scenario. The European Union deploys planes based in Poland and Romania to help Ukraine fight for their airspace. And in retaliation, Russia targets those air bases in Poland and Romania. And as a result of that, NATO will have to protect their own air bases. In the beginning, they'll only try to defend themselves against Russian missiles. And Russia will see that as a threat and as an aggression. That's how NATO might join the war. But I don't think that will happen. But if it's going to happen, that's the way. That's what I believe. If Russia touched the Poland border, it may end up like a Korean War situation where China got involved. If Russia pushes up to the Polish border, I think Poland will be, well, relatively safe, actually. I don't think Russia has any ambitions of pushing past the Polish border. That's what I believe. Where are you from? I'm born in Russia, Vologda, and I live in Stockholm. And where is Vologda? It's a medium-sized city by Russian standards, north of Moscow and east of Stockholm. You can find it. Do you think there will be a new Cold War? Have you heard the term the Second Cold War? It's on its way. Well, it's been on its way since like maybe, I don't know when it started. It's a new term, but basically that's the Cold War we live in right now between China and the United States. What do you think of the nuclear threats Putin made? Do you think, do your Russian sources dismiss it? Russian sources are silent on that part, as far as I can tell. I think it's a threat. telling NATO, back off, don't come closer, stay out of it, I have nukes. I don't think anyone in the world wants to use nukes, not even North Korea. How do you think the war will end? I'll make videos on that. This is not that video. Will the Russians... I've only begun working on it, by the way, so you don't have to wait too long. Why don't you speak Russian? Because I came here when I was like 2 years old. Я не очень хорошо говорю по-русски. Consider... Do you think Moldova will be invaded after Ukraine? So the interesting thing about that is Lukashenko made a goof. He showed maps like for the television showing their attack plan on Ukraine, and Moldova was part of that. Lots of arrows were moving to different locations in Western to Moldova. So that gives us a clue what their long-term strategy is. But even so, first they have to push to Moldova for it to become part of the war. And I doubt that Russia will push that far. I don't think Russia will take Odessa. Odessa is a fortress. Russia might actually push to the Transnistrian border. I'll show you what I think their furthest extent might be. So let's take a look. Where's Odessa? There. Okay, so I think maybe the maximum extent might be like that. And perhaps let's look at the map again. Mountainous is difficult to attack and easy to defend. So let's say roughly like that, maybe. Is that true? Yeah, good enough. So, okay. Let me just draw this map here. Let me just draw it. Okay. Where is the problem? I'm sorry that this is the ugliest map you've ever seen. I'm improvising, as you can tell. Did that do the trick? Yes. So green is basically what I think will stay Ukrainian unless Putin has some major breakthrough or Ukraine surrenders officially. But even if they do, depending on the terms, Western Ukraine will not be happy with the surrender to the Russians. And even if Kiev surrenders, I think Western Ukraine might be too Western. That's what I believe. So green, I think it's going to stay Ukrainian, possibly be annexed by Poland. Please read. Supersets tiny donations to you that pins your comments. That would be good. Yeah, I'll look into it then. Do you think there's a chance of annexation? If so, which parts? Yes, if Russia wins the war. I believe I made a map. Can't find it. Let me take a look here. Well, I can just tell you. But maps are fun. Can't find my map. I made it earlier today. What did I call it? It's gone missing. Well. If parts are annexed, I believe it might be Luhansk, Donetsk, Crimea is already pretty much annexed. Depending on how the war goes, Russia might make all of Eastern Ukraine a puppet. Which, if that happens, then that's how I see these green parts breaking off. Then perhaps central Ukraine can remain sort of a buffer between free Ukraine, Russian Ukraine. some sort of neutral entity. I'm just guessing here. I'm not saying this is plausible. It's just like I guess. Back to the comments. Go ahead, guys. Transnistria. Who do you support? Ukraine. Russia will take Odessa for sure. Odessa is a pretty difficult city to take. The Romanians tried for months, and they only succeeded when the Russians chose to leave. So I don't. I'm having difficulty seeing Odessa fall. Do you think? Does it? Oh, sorry, missed that. How long do you think Kiev will hold? The thing about that is, if Kiev was going to fall, it was going to fall on the very first day. Now they are dug in very good, and if they can fall now, the way I see that happening is Kiev being entirely encircled from all sides, which it's looking like they might be. But then again, Russians haven't made progress here, very little in the last days. But if Russia takes these parts and besieges Ukraine and starves it and bombs it, I give them 3 weeks at the most. If Russia annexes territories. What? That's not a question. Kiev will never fall. Let's hope so. Okay, how long do you think Russia can afford the war? The thing about dictatorships is that they can focus on one thing a long time, regardless of what the people want. So I think Russia can keep this up for years. I'm not saying they can conquer all of Ukraine, because I don't think they can. Well, they can, but I don't think they will. But it took France 6 weeks to fall to Nazi Germany, and it was considered quick. You don't believe it will fall to Putin? Well, I think Russia could defeat Ukraine, but I don't think they will. What about space control? There are UA planes in operations. Is Russia controlling all country airspace? No. From what I can tell, Russia has failed to establish air superiority. On the first day, I heard Ukrainian air defense is knocked out, but that turned out to be false. So that's something that they did not count on. And I think the Westerners are helping Ukraine in a big way on that front. Can Ukraine defend southern Odessa Oblast? Yes, I believe they can, with the help of NATO. I think, well, maybe I should change this then, because I think these parts have a good chance of staying Ukrainian. Green stays Ukrainian. Yellow might be a buffer. Red could fall to Russia. I think dark red will fall to Russia. Do you think the world should blame Russians or Putin? Putin is the only one guilty of it. No, not the only one, but it's not the Russian people. The Russian people are on Ukraine's side, actually. Putin has been feeding the Russians this idea that America is out to get Russia. And Russians have swallowed it. And now Putin starts a war against Ukraine, and the Russian people are like, wait, what? The Ukrainians? I thought the Americans were the enemy. So Russians do not support this, even if they swallowed Putin's narrative to begin with, that the West is the enemy. If the West is the enemy, then why are we fighting Ukraine? That's what the Russians are thinking. Someone says NATO is to blame. I partially agree with that, actually. NATO should have not flirted with Ukraine. So yeah, that's part of it. But I don't think we should lay this war at the feet of NATO. This is Putin, and not Russia, Putin. That's what I believe. Hear about the bombing of Rostov. I think I read something about that. What do you think are the chances of Romania and Moldova uniting and in the next couple of years? Romania and Moldova. Well, I didn't think that might happen, but now that I see that Belarus is planning to attack Moldova and probably even Russia too, if that's true, then I could see Moldova joining Romania. And then the question is, what will happen to Transnistria, which is an independently backed Russian state? Well, then I'd say Transnistria will break off. So let's make a new map here. Let's like that. If this happens, then this is going to happen. Could happen. I never considered that. It's possible if Moldova feels threatened by the West, no, by the East, then they will join Romania, which is part of NATO and the EU. But then Transnistria would break away for sure, as long as the Russians keep control of it, I guess. Do you think Putin will always try to stay in power? Yes, he will always try to stay in power. But if this war goes worse for the Russians, then this is the end for Putin, I believe. How long will Kiev last, do you think? Depends on what happens. So far, they're not encircled, so they are safe. But if Kiev is encircled, I give them no more than a month. Do you think Russia might attack Kazakhstan? I think they might send troops there, but I don't think they'll attack the country. They might send troops to retain their influence in the country. In your opinion, how much will Ukraine need to liberate Luhansk, Donetsk, Crimea? I don't really understand the question. How much do they need to liberate? Well, they will try to liberate everything, but they can't. They probably, I mean, if I'm going to say something for sure, I think whatever happens, Ukraine will be smaller after this on the map. That's what I believe. Do you think that Russia deserves sanctions? Because US was never sanctioned in the Middle East. I think, yes, Russia deserves sanctions, even though the United States did not get them in the Middle East. I actually support the United States largely. I think it was a mistake to enter the Middle East, but I think on the whole, USA good, Middle East bad. Not their people, most of their governments, like Iran, Syria, Saudi Arabia. Lots of bad governments there. Does the West not want Russia gone? Does the West not want Russia gone? Have their plans been clear since the invasion of Georgia? Not sure I understand the question, but what I can say is the West has no intentions of invading Russia. Nobody wants to invade Russia because A, that would result in the destruction of the world, and B, you can't invade Russia. No one has enjoyed it, except for the Mongols. They succeeded, but the Russian spirit was founded from their traumatization of being conquered by the Mongols. So they've devoted their entire country for the last 800 years to make it unconquerable, and it is. So no, Russia will not be invaded or conquered. It's not happening. The West will not invade Russia. You want US and NATO to directly help Ukraine? Oh, sorry, but I think that's a road to World War III and more deaths. I think it's bad enough as it is. Sorry. Would you be willing to indicate actual troop positions? No, because I don't know where the troop positions are. I can tell you what I think I know so far. I believe the Ukrainians are gathering here. This is their main forces and elite units, and they are stationed here right now and preparing to be encircled and defend. Then we have a major defense of Kiev going like this, I think. And they will, of course, try to push here and Ukraine as a whole, of course. This major encirclement that you see on my maps here, it's not really an encirclement. There are no major Ukrainian forces there. It's basically only an encirclement on the map, and in reality, it's pretty chill. It's not that bad as it looks. Will Russian? Then I guess I should add, like, I think the Ukrainians have set up, like, they are trying to defend here, I think, right now. And then the Russians, they are pushing, let's make it red, I guess. Well, I'm running out of colors here. Well, let's go with black again. Russians are pushing here to try to pass this river mouth here to get to Odessa. Russians seem to be making an offensive in this direction. I don't know the details on that. Russians are pushing here, and Russians are pushing here to encircle these guys, and that's going pretty well for them. Russians have pushed this direction. That's what it looks like right now. That's pretty much it, I think, as far as I know. Could you indicate cities on your map? Actually, no. Sorry, but no, I can't really. I don't really have the time. Poland also invaded Russia successfully. Depends on what you mean successfully. They've won war against Russia, but they've never really conquered. I mean, you can invade Russia successfully. Napoleon invaded Russia, but invade only means that you enter the country. Conquering is a different thing. Do you think Europe should switch to nuclear to counter Russian fuel imports? I guess move in that direction. Yes. What do you think will happen to Mariupol? This is a fortress city. It will hold out, but Russia needs that badly. So I think in the end, Mariupol will fall. I don't see them being saved, but it's a bit of a siege, Mariupol. Will the Russian economy collapse for spending too much money on the army and missiles? Well, the Russian economy has been in the toilet for lots of decades now. I don't see it becoming worse would be like a new type of threat to Russia. I think Russia has taken the economic collapse into account. And from what I hear, like the Western sanctions are over exaggerated, their effect. That's my understanding, but I don't know. What would have happened if Trump was still president? Russia would still have invaded Ukraine at least. I don't think Trump would have intervened. I don't think much would be very different, not in Ukraine at least. If World War III happens, which is the most likely scenario to unfold? Well, the most likely scenario to unfold if World War III happens is that whatever we think might happen is not going to happen. That was the case with the two previous world wars. People went into World War I thinking it was a war like all the previous ones, and then they discovered trench warfare, and that was hell. Well, all wars are hell, but that was a new type of hell that they did not take into account. And then in World War II, people thought it might be like World War I, and the Germans just know this is blitzkrieg, guys. And I guess what we thought after that was, well, this is what wars are like now. And now, if we call this World War III, then maybe we thought it would be like World War II, and it's not. So whatever is happening, well, whatever we think is going to happen to the next major war, it will be something else. That's all I can say for sure. Can nuclear warheads be disabled by EMPs? I don't know. What is Putin thinking now? What is he thinking now? Ask him. I really don't know. I think he's not very happy with the way it's going. That's all. Where do you get your info for your maps? You're gonna have to rewatch this stream if I keep it public because, well, in short, it's Wikipedia, various news sources, both Western and Russian, and a few TikTok accounts that are reporting on it. Lots of different sources, all of them slightly unreliable, but I take everything into account and try to ask myself, is this probable? And based off that, I make my own maps. So people have been criticizing me, saying this looks nothing like any other map I've seen. And that's true because I make these myself. I take not one source into account, but all of them. That doesn't mean that just because one source shows a city being controlled by Russia, that I show it as Russia being controlled by Russia. So that's the answer. What do you think about the Russian morale? I see lots of reports of low morale and equipment being abandoned, but it sounds like a bit sketchy to me. I actually think that part is true. Russians and the Ukrainians are brothers, and the Russians have been fed this narrative that America is the enemy. And the Russians have swallowed it. And now Putin starts a war against Ukraine. What's up with that? Like, wasn't America the enemy? Why are we fighting our brethren? Do you think this will inflate the superpower that the USA is? No, actually, I think America is slowly on the decline on the world stage. I don't think America is going to become stronger or more influential because of this. Actually, I think this might be the war that proves that USA is not the answer to everything. It's a brother war, yes, and that's why this war breaks my heart. It's like seeing Finns and Swedes fighting each other. It's so sad. Russians are destroying their brother's country. Like, I lack words. It's horrible to see, and it's not even the Russians. Like, they don't want this. No Russians want. Well, some, but this is the government. And I was partially supportive of Putin before this, but this just takes away any support I might have had for him before. This is horrible. Just seeing Putin attack their. Yeah. Okay. What do you think about gas prices in the West? Do you think it will affect them very significantly? Can't say very significantly. I think it will affect them, but I have no idea how much. That's not my field. If Ukraine manages to turn the situation around, how can it happen? Oh, good question. Let me think here. If Ukraine can turn the situation around. Okay. Let's do this now, okay? This is the situation right now. How can they turn it around? First of all, Kiev does not get encircled. Second, Donbass does not get encircled. They stop the Russian pincer movements here and here. And Donbass is kept Ukrainian partially. What else? More support, indirect support, but much more support from the West. I don't want them to join the war because that might start World War III. So much more support. And then also the main changes will have to come from Russia itself. The people will have to rise up against Putin, so much so that Putin, no matter his hard power, can stop it. Maybe a civil war breaks out in Chechnya, so he will have to divert resources there too, and people take to the streets to fight the government in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and all the other cities. Putin is no longer able to control all parts of Russian society. He has to step down. An opposition leader, or well, first of all, free elections have to be held. There, with a leader that is not defending Russia as a country, but Russia as a nation, if you get what I mean. Like the people, what the people wants and needs, not what the country up. So Putin steps down. Negotiations that are fair and not biased towards Russia, because you don't want to hurt Russia when it's down. You don't want to. You got to be careful, because Russia is a very strong and powerful nation, even when it's defeated and down on its knees. You can't mess with Russia, whatever happens. So you got to be fair to Russia and say, okay, you invaded Ukraine. Time for peace. How can we make this peace as easy on you as possible, so that you don't grab your nukes in retaliation, and you, because that's partly a mistake the West made, I think, maybe when the Soviet Union fell. So Russia goes out of the war. Revolution in Belarus for sure. That's how I see Ukraine turning this around. And it's not impossible. Do you think Russia's crippling internal issues will cause a collapse in the near future? I don't think Russia will collapse. I think Putin might have to step down, but not anytime soon. Maybe in a year or more, depending on the Russian people. I think also that Putin had lots of support from the people before the war, and that kind of went out the window now. So I think he lost his public support. And the only way he can stay in power is, well, by being the dictator he is. Greece versus Turkey, who wins? Both lose, I think, and they won't fight because both are part of NATO. I think, as a whole, Turkey is stronger, if that's what you're asking. But if Turkey invaded Greece, Turkey would lose, and if Greece invade, why am I answering this? This is about Ukraine, guys. Come on. Ukraine and Russia make up 30% of wheat exports in the world. What do you think will make it impossible? There are other things to eat, actually. So no, I don't think so. It might affect us, but it won't change much. Do you support Sverigedemokraterna? Bro, great work. Appreciate it. Yeah, this series just, I think it sort of doubled my channel size. It should happen during such difficult circumstances, but people are interested in this, and so am I, and I'll keep making videos about it. Are you a history student or just a smart guy? I am a history student, not sure about the latter. Well, I'm not anymore, but I did study history at the Stockholm University. I also studied political science. So yes, but studying history at the university was really, really boring. I thought I would go in there reading about World War II and the Roman Empire and the Viking Age, but turns out you get to read about, this is how farmers produced milk in Småland, southern Sweden, between these 2 years. And it's like, oh, interesting, thank you. I think I'll shoot myself. So I study history at pretty much all the free time I have. That's when I'm studying history. If you love history, don't study it. Just study it at home, not in the university. It was really boring. Do you think that West should involve? And if no, I don't think. What would happen to China if the West joins? If the West joins on Ukraine's side fully, I mean they've already joined pretty much, but fully with troops, then I think China would take advantage of the situation and invade Taiwan. Do you think South Odessa will join Romania? The way I see that happening is if central Ukraine falls to Russia and Western Ukraine, Western Ukraine remains independent, maybe joins Poland, and they have set up a defense like here. Yeah, could happen. Or it could be like a new sort of state controlled by NATO or something else. But yeah, it's possible. It's possible. We love you, and you are our companion through all these events. And I love you. Thank you very much. Do you think there could be terrorist attacks in Russia / assassinations on Putin? They made an attempt on Zelensky. It's not impossible that the Ukrainians will retaliate. And yeah, I think it's possible. But I also think that Putin is way too smart and too powerful to that. Like, if I see that happening, maybe like some sort of sniper or I don't think like ninjas will come to his bedroom. I don't think you thought that either. But if Putin can try to assassinate Zelensky, then Zelensky can try to assassinate Putin. But also, like, well, I lost my train of thought. What do you think about the state of Russian logistics? I think Western media is probably exaggerating the dismal state of the Russian logistics. They keep writing about abandoned trucks and Russian looting and Russian low morale and all that, like as if it's new, as if it's not part of every single war. And are we supposed to believe that Ukrainian morale? Well, Ukrainian morale seems to be very high, I'll admit, but obviously Ukrainians are abandoning materials as well. I mean, this is part of war. So them passing it off as, oh Jesus, Russians are abandoning equipment. Like, yeah, that happens during wars. Guess what? The Nazis abandoned equipment too. Vologda mapping. Do you think the Russian military will coup Putin in case they start to lose? Maybe not the military, but maybe the people. Will you continue doing streams after this one? I'll make a poll in the community and ask you guys if you want me to. Do you guys tell me in the comments, like, is this good? Well, I'll assume that since you're all here, you like it, but yeah, I might do it again. Yeah. Okay. This is not a war, but a special operation. Edit stream name. No, this is a war actually. It's a war. Does Putin have the economy to launch nukes? Yes, but they won't. No one will use nukes. This is very, very fun. Thank you. Good. Keep making streams, please. Okay, all right, I will. Since some of you like it, and I mean, we have 2,000 people here. I was very nervous in the beginning, but that's calmed down now. 1 second, guys. I honestly don't see the Crimea returning to Ukraine, even if they win. At most, I would see they become a vassal or junior partner to Ukraine. What do you think will happen to Crimea? I'm assuming in the case in the scenario that Russia loses the war, Russia badly needs Crimea. I mean, they really need Crimea. So I think if Russia chooses to negotiate, keeping Crimea will be important to them. Yes. But if the Russians revolt and Putin is dethroned, I could see the international community grouping together and somehow negotiates with a new leader that Crimea should return to Ukraine. But Jesus, I mean, yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing Crimea, regardless of what happens, like falling back to Ukraine. Yeah. Good work with trying to keep track of this developing crisis. I have read that China is not supporting Russia, but I think that could be propaganda. I've also heard that China is staying neutral. They're not supporting the West, but they are not vocally supporting Russia. And I don't see like how Putin's actions are defendable, honestly. So it's not really surprising. But I still think that China is secretly happy that this is happening because it diverts attention from China and Taiwan. Do you believe that Russia's economy will break and stop the war as long as Ukraine holds out for long enough? If that happens, I don't think Russia will surrender. I think it will come to a stalemate, and Russia will retain control at least of Crimea, Donbas, Luhansk, and possibly southern Ukraine. I also think that Donbas will be annexed, probably regardless of what happens. So we'll do this then. Bear with me here, just to see what this might look like. Yep. These are not the most pretty maps, I'm aware, because, well, obviously, I'm improvising here. Yeah. This will be Russia very soon, I think, regardless of what happens in the war. Is it true that the FSB informed the Ukrainians about the Chechen squad trying to assassinate Zelensky? I have no idea. I know that probably everyone has asked this, but ask this question, but what do you think Putin wants? Well, he wants to extend the Russian line of defense as far west as, well, not as far west as possible, but at least to the Carpathians. This is an important defensive line historically for Russia. They want the Carpathians as their main border. So this is ideal so this is what Putin wants. What else? What else does he want? Putin has this idea, which is very popular in Russia, that Russia as a nation has an autonomous is special compared to other countries in Europe. Putin wants to see Russia in the glorious state that it rightly deserves in his mind. Who gets Zakarpattia, Slovakia or Hungary? Zakarpattia. I don't know where that is. I'll guess this is that. I think Ukraine gets it, or possibly Poland if Western Ukraine joins Poland. Do you think the Rasputitsa mud season would affect the Russian advance? It appears they stick to main roads. Yes, I think it already affects Russian advance. General Rasputitsa is actually underestimated, very underestimated. Everybody talks about General Winter, but what about Rasputitsa? So what's Rasputitsa? Well, it's a Russian phrase for a certain kind of season or weather, or basically it's when all the frozen acres turn to mud. And vehicles can't really get through it. I mean, that's what saved Russia during World War II. Please say anything about partisans. What positions do they hold? How do they fare? Okay, so the partisan activity. What I show as green on the maps is basically whenever the Ukrainian people acts against the Russian invasion without connections to the Ukrainian military or government. So when they stand up on their own, basically. So what's the deal here? Okay, I'll go back to the actual, the latest developments. We have this new thing here in Konotop. I show this as green for the simple reason that the mayor asked. The Russians, the mayor asked the people, the Russians have given me an ultimatum. Join us or watch your city be destroyed. And then he asked the people. The Ukrainian people of Konotop said, we don't like, yeah, you can imagine what they said. Which is why they're green. So I think Russia will make sure that Konotop is in the hands of Russia again. I expect this to return to red soon. This little green thing is just one minor event I read about. I believe no, this was pretty major actually, but this is pretty much. It was a very minor event, but to indicate to you guys that partisan activity is going on. The main partisan activity is here. You might have heard about it. Enerodar. Not sure how you pronounce it, but basically it was on the verge of falling to Russia, and then the people took control and established roadblocks and are, well, a few hours ago I saw videos of them fighting Russian tanks that are trying to pass, and so this Enerodar is the main partisan activity. So far, improvised angry Ukrainians fighting the invasion. This is that's green on my maps. What do you think about Donbass and Luhansk? People struggle past 8 years. What I think? I think it was largely backed and ignited by the Russian government, but I also believe lots of them genuinely sympathize with Russia. However, I don't think they would have been so supportive of Russia if they knew what was going to happen. So I think I also think that Russia will annex Luhansk and Donetsk, whatever might happen soon. I think, yeah, I think that will be annexed into Russia, just like Crimea was, because that's what happened with Crimea. What do you think will happen to Russian leadership if Putin falls? Will the replacement be better or worse than Putin? Better, I think. I think if Putin falls, it's because of the Russian people who are sick and tired of this dictator. Personally, I hope that Alexei Navalny will become the leader, and I think that might save. No, I won't put too much on his shoulders, but yeah, that's what I think. You speak Russian, не очень хорошо. When you pronounce the cities, I hear some accent. I understand the Russian pronunciation of most cities. I speak Russian quite badly, but a little. Are you a professional historian or just a very knowledgeable man? To the extent that I'm professional, YouTube is my profession. This last week, it's been going really well. My channel has doubled. So like if 70 subscribe and 14 million views is an indication, like That's how professional I am. But I haven't worked with history really, except for YouTube. And YouTube is really right now the only historical work that I'm interested in. There's an open software program called URMap Street Map. It's very detailed. Okay, I'll write that down. See if it's any help. Thank you. What was that again? URMap. No, UMap. Okay, good. Thank you. I think the Belarus refugees think start of a big plan, and this war is a part of the same part too. Do you think I am right? I don't have an opinion on that. You're Swedish, right? Well, I speak Swedish, but I'm 3/4 Russian, 1/4 Jewish. Do you hear that Odessa asked for Luhansk's help? No, I did not hear that. I doubt it, but if you say so. Leaked document from Russian troops showing war against Ukraine was approved on the 18th January and initial plan to seize Ukraine starting 20th February. All right. Live view map. Yeah. Right. That's my main source actually. So okay, if that's what you meant by UMap, then I already knew about that one. It's been my main source. You cringe. Um, if you say so. Do you think China wants the Far East in the long term? Uh, in the long term, yes, China has ambitions on Siberia in general. What if Hist thinks that in the long term Siberia will fall to China? I don't see that happening. But yeah, I don't know if it's true, but a Ukrainian source has reported that they control a huge highway. Yeah, I read about that, and I will look into that after this stream whenever I choose to end it. Where are the partisans rebelling against Russia? Yes. Or are these just areas with manifestations against the invaders? It's not very. It's open for interpretation. Basically, whenever I see people rising up against Russia without the help of the military or the government, that's partisan activity in my book. I'm sort of running out of energy here, and I gotta start working on the day 7 videos. So I think we might wrap it up soon. I'll give you guys some time to like say any last things here that you wanna get off your chest, and I'll take a look. But I'll pretty much stop the Q&A soon and the stream. I can't really mark the cities on the map actually. I could, but I don't have the time. I have studies and a girlfriend that needs my attention, so I can't. Or I choose not to because I prioritize. Are you aware of the mass genocide of Donbas civilians? I wouldn't call it a genocide. Well, what will you do after the Ukraine mapping videos? I'll improvise. I have a list of ideas. What about the Ukraine neo-Nazis? I'm sure there are extremists on both sides. Yeah. I think we are going to wrap this up now. So lots of people watch this stream. I'm very thankful. I'll do this again. This was fun. I really appreciate all the support I've been getting. This is why I do it, because so many of you like are really supportive of my work, and that's what makes it worth it, because I work lots of hours a day on this, and you guys are just making it, despite the circumstances, a joy for me. So I love this, and I love you. And with that, Slava Ukraini, goodbye.